Buy, borrow, die is one of the most powerful wealth building strategies the ultra wealthy use to reduce taxes, build liquidity, and pass down wealth to the next generation. But here's what most people don't realize. Every financial strategy has strengths and every strategy has weaknesses. And if you don't understand the hidden dangers behind leverage and borrowing, the same strategy that builds wealth for one person can financially destroy someone else. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how the buy, borrow, die strategy works, why wealthy families use it, how I personally use parts of this strategy in my own financial life. Now, obviously, I haven't made it to the die part yet. And being 34 years old, I hope to have many more years ahead of me. But most importantly, I'm going to explain how I avoid the hidden trap behind this strategy that almost nobody talks about. Because the goal isn't just to borrow money. The real goal is to build wealth, create cash flow, maintain control, and avoid becoming over leveraged in the process. So stay with me until the end of this video, because understanding this strategy could completely change the way you think about taxes, debt, and building generational wealth. Before we get into it, my name is Elridge. My full investing story is in the description, so you can check that out. Let's get into it. The first part of the strategy is the buy phase. The ultra wealthy typically are buying assets that can appreciate over time and ideally produce cash flow. That could be duplexes, single family rental properties, apartment buildings, businesses, index funds, dividend paying investments. And for me personally, one of the assets I use is a properly structured IUL policy because of the liquidity and long-term advantages they can create. Now, there are many different assets you could buy, but the key principle behind the strategy is ownership. The goal is to buy quality assets and hold them, not constantly buying and selling, because there's a major difference between unrealized gains and realized gains. Unrealized gains are what people call paper profits. That means your asset has increased in value, but you haven't sold it yet. For example, if you bought a property for $200,000 and now it's worth $300,000, that extra $100,000 is considered an unrealized gain because you still own the asset. But once you sell that property, those gains become realized gains. And when gains become realized, that's when taxes can show up. So essentially, what many ultra wealthy families do, and what I'm personally trying to build towards, is holding appreciating assets for the long term instead of constantly liquidating them and triggering taxable events. But here's the important part that almost nobody mentioned. How you buy the asset matters just as much as what you buy, because you cannot over leverage and expect this strategy to work long term. If you buy the assets with too much debt, no reserves, and poor cash flow, eventually the strategy can collapse on you. Let's go back to the previous example. You own a piece of real estate that's appreciated by $100,000. You could sell a property, realize the gains, and potentially owe taxes on that profit. Or instead of selling it, you could borrow against the equity in the property, because loans are generally not considered taxable income. So let me ask you a question. Would you rather pay taxes on a $100,000 gain or pay interest while still keeping ownership of the asset? That's where the borrow part of the strategy comes in. Now, this is where the strategy starts getting really interesting. Wealthy people spend years building large portfolios in what some people would consider boring or unattractive assets. Things like single family real estate, index funds, businesses, cash value life insurance. These are typically more stable assets that's not as volatile. And instead of constantly selling these assets, many wealthy people borrow against them. Later in this video, I'm going to talk about what happens when asset values go down and why that becomes one of the biggest hidden traps in this strategy. So make sure you stay into the end. But first, let's talk about how borrowing actually works. If you own real estate, one of the ways you could borrow is through a HELOC, which stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. I personally prefer a HELOC over a traditional mortgage in many situations because a HELOC is a revolving line of credit, meaning that as you pay it down, the credit becomes available again. It gives you more flexibility and liquidity. If you own stocks or index funds, you may be able to borrow against your portfolio using something called a securities-backed line of credit, also known as a margin loan. And the same with a properly structured life insurance policy. With those policies, you can often borrow against the cash value through a policy loan. Now, here's the fascinating part about policy loans and margin loans. The debt can accrue, meaning you may not be required to make immediate monthly payments the same way you would with traditional loans. The interest can continue accumulating over time while the asset potentially growing in the background. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean the debt disappears. It still must be managed responsibly. A common question people ask is, how do you eventually pay these loans back? And there are several ways. Sometimes the debt is paid through cash flow produced by the asset. For example, rental income from real estate, business income, dividends. Other times, the debt simply continues accruing strategically over long periods of time until you die. For example, with life insurance, the debt benefit would pay it back. And this is why it's extremely important to understand what type of asset you're buying in the first place. Are you buying growth assets or cash flowing assets? Because growth assets may increase in value over time, but cash flowing assets help support the debt and maintain the strategy for the long term. Many of the richest people in the world intentionally pay themselves relatively small salaries while funding much of their lifestyle through borrowed money against their assets. Why? Because earned income is often taxed at some of the highest rates, but borrowing against assets can create liquidity without being taxed. That's why this strategy has become so powerful for wealthy families. But again, this is also where people can get themselves in trouble if they don't understand risk, cash flow, and leverage correctly. Now let's talk about the final part of the strategy, the die phase. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that I personally implement parts of this strategy. Right now, I'm primarily in the buying and borrowing phase. I'm focused on accumulating assets, creating cash flow, building liquidity, and borrowing strategically against them like real estate, index funds, cash value life insurance, but not to fund my lifestyle yet, but to create more income, typically in short-term opportunities. And eventually, as I get older and move into retirement age, the goal would be to potentially convert some of that debt and those assets into long-term income streams, almost like creating my own pension backed by assets. But let's get back to the die part of the strategy. One of the biggest reasons wealthy families hold assets for a long period of time is because something called the step up in basis. And this is one of the most powerful wealth transfer concepts most average people never learn about. Let's say someone bought a piece of real estate years ago for $100,000. Over time, that property appreciates and now worth $1 million. If they sold that property during a lifetime, they could potentially owe capital gains tax on the $900,000 gain. But under current tax rules, when certain assets pass to their heirs after death, the cost basis of the asset may step up to the current market value. So instead of the heirs inheriting the original $100,000 basis, they may inherit the property at the new $1 million value, which means a massive portion of those gains may never trigger the same capital gains taxes that would have happened if the asset had been sold earlier. That's why wealthy families focus on buying assets, holding assets, borrowing against assets, and passing those assets to the next generation. Instead of constantly liquidating everything through their lifetime. Now, obviously, tax laws can change over time, and I'm not giving you tax or legal advice in this video. I'm simply explaining how many wealthy families think about ownership, leverage, and generational wealth. Now, if you made it this far into the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It definitely helped this video get in front of more people. Now I'm going to explain the hidden trap behind the buy, borrow, die strategy and how to avoid it. Because overall, I believe this strategy is powerful when it's implemented correctly. In fact, many people in our community are actively building towards this long-term strategy for retirement and generational wealth. Guys, if you want to build wealth the way we do at Vertical Capital, join our Vertical Capital Bankers community. The link is in the description. There are three major factors you must pay attention to when implementing the buy, borrow, die strategy: the value of the asset, the amount of equity, and the amount of debt or loans against the asset. And this is where people get themselves in trouble. You cannot borrow faster than the asset appreciates. Let me say that again. You cannot continue increasing debt while the underlying asset is stagnant or declining. Because eventually, if the debt line catches up to the asset value line, the entire buy, borrow, die system starts breaking down. That's the trap. And this is exactly what happens to people who become over leveraged. They hear wealthy people borrowing against assets, but they ignore the discipline, liquidity, and risk management behind the strategy. Wealthy people don't just borrow blindly. They monitor asset performance, cash flow, loan balances, interest rates, in liquidity positions. Now, this is why how you buy the asset matters just as much as what asset you buy. Now, another thing people need to understand is there are liquid assets and illiquid assets. Liquid assets are assets you can access or convert into cash relatively quickly. I consider liquid assets you can access cash in 24 to 48 hours. Things like cash value life insurance, stocks, index funds. Illiquid assets are things like real estate, businesses, private investments. Now, don't get me wrong, I love real estate. I have a real estate portfolio. But real estate is not always easy to liquidate quickly. And this is why, for me personally, and many people in our community, we start building liquid assets first before aggressively scaling illiquid assets. Because you always have to prepare for down markets, high interest rates, vacancies, market corrections, or unexpected emergencies. Now, let's talk about one of the most important concepts in borrowing: debt coverage ratio, also known as DCR. Debt coverage ratio basically measures whether the cash flow from the asset is strong enough to cover the debt payments. The formula is simple: income from the asset divided by the debt obligation. DCR equal net operating income divided by debt payments. For example, if a property produces $2,500 per month in cash flow and the debt payments is $2,000 per month, the DCR will be 1.25. That means the property generates 25% more income than the debt obligation. And personally, I believe maintaining at least a minimum of a 1.25 DCR is extremely important when buying assets and when borrowing against them. Because if your DCR gets too low, one problem can destroy the entire strategy. One vacancy, one market downturn, one rise in interest rates, one loss of income, and now the debt start controlling you instead of the asset working for you. This is why I always tell people the buy, borrow, die strategy only works when cash flow, liquidity, and leverage stay balanced. Because leverage is powerful, but unmanaged leverage can be a financial headache. And honestly, this is the part most people leave out, because talking about risk is less exciting than talking about wealth. But if you truly want to build generational wealth, you have to think long-term, manage risk, and stay disciplined. That's why I personally focus on maintaining liquidity, avoiding over leveraging, monitoring debt, coverage ratios, building cash flow, and thinking long-term. If you got value from this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below: would you personally use the buy, borrow, die strategy? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to build wealth like we do, join our community. The link is in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.